This is good. Now, if you like matchups, you do like offense because you never played a bit of bleeping defense in your life. Indiana Pacers, New York Knicks. I'll tell you what, the coaching job that has been done in New York with a mixed bag roster and with the loss of Julius Randle is absolutely amazing. The Knickerbockers have, I think, one of the best shooting guards, and he takes a volume of shots in Jalen Brunson. They got Josh Hart, Laker refugee. He's really playing well. They got Anunoby, guard who came from Toronto at the deadline, playing well. They got this journeyman they picked up. He'd been in Milwaukee, been in Golden State. DiVincenzo shoots threes. Got a young center, not a household name, Mitchell Robinson. They're doing all this. They've combined and made this thing good, and they play with great grit because that's what Tom Thibodeau teaches. They're doing this without Julius Randle. I mean, that's amazing. So you got the Knickerbockers, and across the hallway, you got Indiana. Now, you always try to make a trade at the deadline if you think you can get a difference maker. Pascal Siakam came from Toronto. He's averaging 32 a game since the trade. Mm-hmm. That's a big-time gun. They got a big center that nobody knows about. All he does is grab rebounds, play defense, can score points. Miles Turner. You add into that Tyrese Halliburton, who's kind of evolved as a point guard who does a lot of things statistically. Indiana is really dangerous. Now, maybe Indiana's playing above its head right now, but I'll tell you what, Knickerbockers, Pacers, they might break the scoreboard. We may have a bunch of 130, 124 games. I think that's going to be a really good series. Next one, interesting matchup, the Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota, although the spotlight is very much on Anthony Edwards and his explosive games, he had 43 the other night in the playoffs. They know he's coming down the court with a ball. They know they have to defend him, and dude still scores 43. He has made such a jump in productivity and consistency. But they also have Rudy Gobert. They also have Karl Anthony Towns. They've got themselves their own version of the big three up there in the land of 1,000 lakes. That's pretty good. I just wonder about Denver and fatigue. You know, they had to come from behind in every game, and they finally put away the Lakers. And they had to turn around and had to play immediately against Minnesota in the first game, and they got creamed at home. I looked up, and it was 14-2 right out of the gate. Minnesota gave the lead back, but then Minnesota came back and put them away. But they did that in the altitude. I mean, to me, I'd be worried about Denver just being really a fatigued basketball team. Oklahoma City, Dallas. We know about Sean Gilgeous-Alexander. He's a great point guard. Half the world doesn't know about the other people on that team. Chet Holmgren, quietly and effectively, and he's been lost in the shadow of Wembanyama showing up in San Antonio this year. But that kid's averaging like 13 points, 8 rebounds a game as a 19-year-old. Wow. He played 1 year, part of a year at Gonzaga. He's playing really well for the Oklahoma City. And Jalen Williams and Getty, 2 other names, nobody pays attention. They got real good firepower. So Oak City's going to be good. Dallas has got Luka. Dallas has got Kyrie playing really well together. But there might be a fatigue factor there for the Dallas Mavericks because they had to work really hard in their playoff series. And the final series is probably going to be a walkover. Boston, Cleveland. We know about Tatum. We know about Brown. We know about the veterans on the Boston bench. Nobody, I don't think, knows very much about Derek White, except in these playoffs, he's had games of 25, 31, and I think he scored 43 the other night.
Really?
He's a firepower guy. Boston's really good. Boston's really deep. Now, Boston won't have Kristaps Porzingis because of his calf injury, maybe for the start of the series. But Cleveland, I just don't think Cleveland's got enough players. Donovan Mitchell is just kind of carrying them single-handedly, and you can't ask him to score 50 points as he did the other night in a playoff game. So Boston might have a walkover here. Of all the teams in best position to go deep, Boston, because they've had real quick series and they're fully rested, and now they get a Cleveland team that's kind of limping in here, having gone through a 7-game series with lowly Orlando. So it's going to be fun to watch these playoff games. But if you get the chance, you just don't go in the kitchen. Just make sure you watch the Knicks in Indiana, because that might be old school ABA basketball.
Yeah, well, when I think of the Knicks in Indiana, I think of Reggie Miller and Spike Lee.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and doing the choke signs as they're going back. And that one game when Reggie Miller just lit it up in the last minute of the game. I mean, that was like in the early 90s. But Jalen Brunson, man, he's a really talented player. You just watch him, and him and Donovan Mitchell, both of them, they're kind of small, but boy, they can get into the key and around all the bigs, and then they get these crazy layups. I mean, they're really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, Brunson's not afraid to shoot.
No,
Holy
not at
cow.
all.
But Thibodeau lets him do it because he makes a lot of plays and he makes everybody around him pretty dangerous when the defense tries to collapse in on him. But like I said, the guy had 47 the other night, and everybody knows what's coming down the floor, and yet he still scores. So I think this round of the playoffs, with the exception of Boston, Cleveland, I think it's really going to be good. We move on.